Hey, g'day, it's Buck here from Queer Pagan Men Australia. Today I'm very excited to be introducing you all to Tommie StarChild. Now, Tommie is a witch, a spirit worker, and an initiated priest of Anderson Ferry tradition. He's also works as a conjureman and a spirit worker, and is currently studying under Orion Foxwood in Ferry seership. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all to Tommie StarChild. Hey, Tommie.
Hello, and welcome everybody.
So, Tommie, so excited to have you joining us in Australia at the beginning of 2018 for Roots and Bones. So, tell us a little bit about your journey as a queer man and your journey towards your spiritual path and what it actually meant for you to be able to find an expression of yourself or a reflection of yourself through divinity and through your spiritual contact in the path.
Okay, that's a small answer.
Yeah.
So having been raised Baptist,
Okay.
Baptist private school, I was adopted, and it was the pastor of my parents' church who arranged for my adoption. So I often say that my family was created in the church because it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very much a part of my life, very much a part of my upbringing. I was one of those strange kids that would discuss and debate like Old Testament theology with adults at a very young age. So spirituality, there was something in it that spoke to me. Obviously, growing up Baptist, there was going to be a point where that was not going to speak well. And so as I got older, starting to discover that there's something in me that's different, not knowing what it was, but whatever it was not okay with the church. When I graduated in '86, I moved from Michigan to Phoenix and kind of embarked on a journey of self-discovery without realizing that that's where the road was taking me. Phoenix is an interesting place in that occultism is kind of right on the surface in a lot of places in Phoenix or Arizona in general, and New Mexico are sort of interesting places for sort of bizarre occultism. And my first boyfriend was the first person to ever say anything to me about witchcraft and used to call me a white witch. I had no idea what he was talking about. He used to play D&D, so I just thought it was a D&D thing. But something stuck. It kept, re-arriving in my consciousness. It just kept representing itself. And it wasn't until a few years later, different partner, different life, I finally had enough courage to say, I think I want to go get a book on witchcraft. And it was kind of like duck and, that weird person, whatever. And fortunately for me, he's like, I don't believe in that stuff, but whatever you want to do, fine. And went to a bookstore on the encouragement of a coworker who happened to be a psychic. I used to be a hairdresser, where a lot of us magical folks have a tendency to end up. And she was a psychic. And one day while cutting hair, she just turned around and said, I needed to get a book. And I'm like, well, what kind of book? And she's like, whatever falls off the shelf at you. So I went to this metaphysical bookstore that I used to hang out in, literally expecting a book to fall off the shelf because that's what she said. I confirmed with her, fall off the shelf. She's like, I don't know, maybe. And just kind of positioned myself in front of sections and subjects until something seemed to strike my awareness. And that's how I ended up with my first Scott Cunningham book. Mm-hmm. I forget exactly. I think it was Earth, Air, Fire, Water. Okay. Was the first one. And there was something in his voice. It wasn't, of course, the material was opening me up in certain ways, but there was something in the voice in his writing that spoke to me. I didn't know at the time that he was gay. I was just drawn to his material. Mm-hmm. And then began to really explore that and started journaling. That was back in 1992, around 91, 92, and embarked on this long journey. And it wasn't until the experience of youth and the experiences of coming into one's own self-worth, of course, led me down the road of substance abuse and then toward recovery. And so in 96, I got into recovery, and that really began to shape where I had been and where I was going. Because when I got into recovery, one of the things that I knew is back in 92, I had a calling to do this. I didn't know what this was, but I heard it and I felt it. And then I was going to be that crazy person that nobody wanted to be around because I didn't know anyone in my life that did whatever this is. And so when I got into recovery, I was like, all right, Goddess, you got me. I can't run from you any longer. Clearly, I wasn't getting away. So I turn myself over to you, like, completely. And it wasn't long after that I met my first teacher, who was Dominic Almirian, and my teacher and initiator in Anderson Ferry. So I was doing early recovery, Anderson Ferry, at the same time. Not recommended, but I was determined to focus my journey inward. I knew that my life choices had gotten me where I was at. I didn't like where I had ended up, and that it was incumbent upon me to be a diligent student of myself and my life in order to see how I created these patterns, to see how to do things differently. So even though that was an intense experience, I really dove into it because I was really driven, and have always been ever since, very driven to go as deep inward as I possibly can to find that mystery that sits deep within. What was pulling me in this direction, even when I was a little kid, that spoke to me in a way that wasn't contextualized in the church I grew up in, and wasn't even contextualized in the books that I originally was starting to read. But then when I stumbled onto Anderson Ferry, things really began to take shape. It also gave me the opportunity to speak aloud something that I had never spoken to another human being, but my fairy contacts that I was born with. And they've been with me all my life. When I was a kid, I was very well aware that there was these things. I didn't quite know what they were, but they were with me. And but the church was like, that's not real. This is reality. That's not reality. And I consciously, knowingly learned their reality as opposed to mine. I knew that that's what I was doing, even at such a young age, because they just kept telling me that this is real, that's not real. And so in Ferry, I started unlearning some things that were blocking me, as well as opening up to awarenesses that had been present most all my life.
Awesome. Wow, that's a journey.
And that's just the intro.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up on the road.
Yeah. Then at the age of 6,
Exactly.
All right. So, tell us a little bit further down the track in your journey. How you found the correlation or the connection of your path through a queer lens, and how that worked for you.
Right. In studying Anderson Ferry, like I said, the books I was just reading on my own, I figured I'd been misguided by the church. So if I was going to be misguided again, I was going to misguide myself, and I wasn't going to take anybody else with me. And so when I found Anderson Ferry, that was the first time that I really connected with another person. There's one other student I was studying with. She happened to be a lesbian. My teacher happened to be gay. And Anderson Ferry happens to be Anderson Ferry. Yeah. So queer paganism was not really kind of on my radar, because Anderson Ferry, by its very nature, is just queer. It just is. And it tends to draw folks that are queer, and queer in its truest sense, off the norm. And so my experience in ritual then and our study and practice is deity can come through whomever. It doesn't matter. Gender of deity, our deities have 3 genders at minimum. They have whatever primary gender they may present in. Then they have the opposite gender, and then they have the androgen quality. And so that was recognized also very much within the individual as well. So I didn't get gay paganism, gay male paganism, until I started going outside of my little insular group and going out into different parts of the community and being exposed to this very binary system, this male, female fertility, this plugs into that kind of system. And I was like, whatever, that's not my thing. And I'm Anderson Ferry, and we just did things so incredibly different. So that didn't even fit in how we did things. And it wasn't until going to something like PantheaCon, which is a big, huge pagan convention that happens on the West Coast in California once a year, to experience a much bigger section of the community and workshops on this crazy thing called like queer paganism or gay paganism or gender fluidity in your pagan practice, or calling down the deity opposite your gender. Went to one of those workshops and was like, this is it? Like, how was that? How did that feel? And we're like, am I just jaded, or was this kind of a duh factor? So for me, witchcraft has not been dependent upon my expression of myself and whom I love. Witchcraft for me was raw, powerful energy and connecting with what's alive, burning within the individual. And our deities, much like the folks that get drawn to this path, are very fluid in how they love. And so are many folks in this tradition. So I didn't see these boundaries. I didn't see the binary and how I was practicing. But I learned to notice it later.
Cool. Very cool. So at Roots and Bones, the workshop you're presenting is the warrior and the healer. Why this workshop, and what can we expect from this workshop?
Why is a bit multi-layered. I think one of the biggest whys is it harkens back to the very first Stone and Stang, which was the very first gathering hosted by the Brothers of the Unnamed Path. And I was given an opportunity to present and come up with a workshop. And something had already been tugging at my spirit. Another friend was reading around the archetypes of warrior, healer, and many different other male archetype figures and things. And something about it was pulling at me. It was getting my attention, and I couldn't get away from it, and it was tugging at me. And so that became the opportunity to dip into whatever it was tugging me and allow it to come forward. It was also the first ever, and I think so far the first only, workshop that I've written specifically for a gay male audience.
Oh, cool.
So prior to, and that was even a huge, I'm like, how do I dip into my spirituality and focus it for a gay male listener when what I do is already for the ears of a gay man or anybody? Like, it didn't matter. But something was there in this, and these archetypes that was calling to be spoken. And when I started pulling it together, my fairy companions that go by the name of Sims took over, as well as some deities of the Anderson Ferry tradition, which will come out as the workshop unfolds. That's part of the teaser. but certainly something needed to be spoken. There was a voice in there that was wanting to be heard. And I frequently start off that workshop by saying that I don't work with archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm presenting a workshop that's focusing on some archetypes.
Yeah.
But it gives us an opportunity to look at what we are offered as men, and in particular, what we are offered as gay men, and then stretching that even further as gay pagan men.
Mm.
And these archetypes can give us some direction, or they may end up being just other boxes that we find ourselves trying to fit in or get out of.
Mm.
And so it's delving into a couple of these archetypes to really then pull out of us through the lens of some Anderson Ferry mythos, a different story of creation, a different story of how we fit in the cosmos. What is that energetic quality of sex between two men, from a deity level down to the human level, and that the sex, the primal sex, the ecstatic sex between two men is recreating the cosmic origin of creation.
Wow. Nice. Okay, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Cool. So, well, between now and the workshops, is there anything you would recommend the attendees have a look at or check out or get familiar with to aid their experience?
Open your minds.
Okay.
Open your hearts. Be prepared to have buttons pushed.
Cool.
I like to push buttons. That's the point of the workshop. The workshop does not contain within it a working or a ritual or a guided meditation, but the workshop itself is a working. You will be going on a journey. I won't tell you in advance where the journey is to end, because I don't know where each individual is to end in the journey of that time that we share together. Yeah. But a journey will be had. And dig your feet in the soil, lift your arms to the sky, and breathe into the place that you're at. If you do that between now and then, I think you'll feel the roots where they need to be, feel the branches where they need to be, and be present where you're sitting.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Tommie, thank you very, very much. And if people did want to find out a little bit more about you and some of what you do and you offer as well, where can they find out about you?
My shop is called My Authentic Self. Mm-hmm. And so they can find out more information about myself, what I do on myauthenticself.com.
Cool. I'm
also on Facebook, Tommie StarChild. There you can find out probably more about me than you care to know. But I'm a very open individual. I am also a sister of perpetual indulgence, so that's part of the probably more than you wanted to know. But those are the two primary places: Facebook's Tommie StarChild, myauthenticself.com. And I do have a small Etsy shop that's also under the same name, My Authentic Self. But that can be found from the website.
Right.
But that gives the philosophy of the work that I do, which is very much interwoven with the work that I do as a sister, which is about, promoting joy and lifting the guilt that's been placed on us from outside sources. I've just been able to weave that through my spiritual practice into my primary work to help people find their center and move beyond the guilt that gets placed on us from all the outside entities.
Cool. Very cool. Well, Tommie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and we can't wait to have you all the way here down under in a few months.
I can't wait to get there. Oh. I am literally counting the days.
Cool. Thank you so much. See you later.
Thank you.